All right. Hello, bonjour, Annie, hola. My name is Garrett Ryan. I am with Artist Relations here at Fringe North this season. First of all, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Pride Month from all of us here at Fringe North. And I am very happy to be back here on our first live Fringe North Artist Roundtable of the season, which we're going to be doing again every Thursday evening until the festival begins on August 16th. So, as I said, this is our first roundtable, and I'm so happy to be joined by Marie Jose, Ash, and Jess. I will give you just a quick moment to introduce yourselves. Let me tell you, let me give someone a start. I know you're all looking at each other. Jess, I see you're unmuted, so how about you start?
Yeah, as I stare at the screen trying to figure out how to mute myself. So I'm Jess, and I publish poetry under J. Alphazell, and a lot of what I write is inspired by nature in Northern Ontario and kind of my own growth and just kind of mindfulness as I look at the world and kind of take little things like trees or the river or maybe a bumblebee and kind of reflect on it and then turn it into poetry and kind of share it with people in hopes that they connect with it, and when they read it they don't feel so alone in the world.
Fantastic. And Ash, you're next on my screen if you want to go.
I'm Ash. I'm one of the co-head of houses of the co-heads of the House of Gore here in Sault Ste. Marie, and I perform under the name Luke McGainley Gore Shadow. I'm a drag performer, so I perform as a drag king. We do a lot of like stage shows, 18 plus shows that are lots of lip syncing and dancing. We also do youth and all ages events, story times, pretty much anything where people like lots of, glitter and sparkle and music and storytelling.
Fantastic. And Marie Jose.
Hi, I'm Marie Jose. I am a pole dancer. I do a lot of low flow stuff, so that's like mainly on the ground. I do some tricks and stuff too, but I'm really all about the choreography, and I like taking different concepts, playing with them. Sometimes comedic, sometimes sad, sometimes raunchy, sexy, 18 plus. Um, yeah, and I'm very, very excited to be joining Fringe North. Not to mention, it's an opportunity to be able to express that art in a space that is safe. So, yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm grateful to have you in the festival this season, and grateful to have the three of you here. Thank you so much again for joining. Um, I guess first things first, while we're on the subject of talking a little bit about our crafts, um, I also wanted to say, just as a quick note, I think this is great. I love when we get a good mix of different mediums going on. We were talking a little bit about some of the intersections between our various crafts, but I think it's cool to get these different perspectives. So I'm really looking forward to diving into some talk about the art making process. Um, but I wanted to, before we kind of get into the what I want to talk about today, I wanted to ask for you all to share a little bit about what our audiences can expect to see at Fringe North this season from you. What give us a little teaser of what you're working on. Um, who wants to start? Who's excited?
I'll start. I'm excited. So we are bringing a drag stage show to Fringe North this year, potentially two. We are looking at an all ages, or sorry, we're looking at an 18 plus adult show that will have lots of comedy, lots of dancing, lots of lip syncing, costuming. We're hoping, I'm pretty sure we're like 99% sure. We've got a couple performers that are drag performers in Sudbury that are going to join us. So we're kind of going to do like a little bit of a showcase of some Northern talent that's outside of the Sioux, which is great and exciting. And then we're also potentially doing an all ages show or a youth show that will be a Disney theme. So you are going to see the House of Gore performers take on all of your favorite Disney songs and we're all very excited about this because, well, we're the House of Gore, and our big thing within the community is usually our Halloween show, which is all very like lots of stunts and blood and all of that. We're all giant kids at heart, and we are all huge fans of Disney. So the opportunity to really lighten things up and take on Disney is really exciting for us this year.
Fantastic. That's so exciting. I remember last year we were talking a little bit about the potential of doing some kind of Disney thing, or we're talking about some of the getting into the musical theater type stuff. So I'm so looking forward to seeing that. And so happy to have you again in the festival. Let's Marie Jose, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I'm still in the process of building my set list. I'm very much trying to craft something that is kind of covers all kinds of facets of stuff that I like to do. I will be making some costumes as well, and then I will be wearing heels, and I might do a routine with no heels. There will probably be a lot of floor work, as that's kind of my specialty. And I'm really hoping to have a tongue-in-cheek performance. So I really hope I like to play with my audience a little bit. So I think it's gonna be a good time. I think it's gonna be, shall I say, a hoot.
Fantastic. Yeah, I haven't had the privilege of seeing you perform. This will be your first year, at least that I've been a part of the festival, that you're involved with Fringe North. I think this is your first year with Fringe North in general. Am I correct?
It is, yeah, it is.
Fantastic.
I mean, I've only been in Sioux. Today is actually 2 years since I moved here.
Oh wow! Oh, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
So I'm still kind of a newbie in the space, if you will.
Well, we're so happy to have you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you on stage. Because yeah, I've seen both Jess and Ash were with us last year, and we're so happy they're back. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Jess, do you want to share a little bit about what you're looking at this year?
Yeah. I'm sorry guys. Tried it on mobile this time and that was a mistake. So next time I know to join on my laptop. But this year I'm doing something I've been thinking about for about a year now. I really love mixing mediums, and me and my fiance love to sit in our living room and he plays the guitar, and I'm always making up these nonsense songs for our kid. And I thought, I'm like, I do this on TikTok all the time. I'm always blending music with my like spoken poetry. And I'm like, why don't we give it a go as a show and put something together and then have like a backdrop of local photography? So what we're hoping to do, and it's kind of still a little bit of a work in progress because I can't leave anything alone until the day of. But we're going to do spoken poetry with some original guitar pieces. And then the background is all going to be photography of Northern Ontario. And all the poetry and music is inspired by this piece of the world, like this corner of the earth.
That's amazing. Oh, and that's so exciting. I'm a sucker for Northern Ontarian stuff, as we've talked about before. But that's so cool that you're blending those mediums like that. I'm really looking forward to that. Fantastic. So with all that context, I wanted to take today to chat a little bit about the idea of beginnings and starting projects, and even just starting out as an artist in general. I hope we can dive into all of that, since this is the start of our Fringe North 2022 or 2023 season. I don't know what year it is. The start of our Fringe North 2023 season, with a few months leading up to the festival. So I wanted to start by basically just asking, how did you sort of begin your path as an artist in general? Now, this doesn't have to be the current medium you're working in. This could be however you want to take that question. Because I know for myself, where I'm at as an artist is definitely not how I started out. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that journey. Does anyone want to jump into it?
Sure, why not? So in terms of, in a general sense, I've always kind of been drawn to art. So growing up, I did dance, I did writing, singing, just like everything and anything. But when I started pole dance, so I'm 25 now. Whoa. I started when I was 19, and I was diagnosed with anorexia, and I went into treatment. And once I had gained so much weight, at one point they were like, okay, so now you're going to pick a sport and you're going to start it. And the only thing I wanted to do was pole dance. So I showed up to my first pole class, saw my body in a mirror for the first time, had a breakdown. And now that's turned into 5 years of me dancing. But the studio I came from was called Rock and Pole. It was in Barrie. And we had a lot of classes and stuff, but it was also kind of a competitive studio. So while I was still I use the term baby polar. So while I was still a baby polar, my like pole parents and like my pole like siblings, they were getting ready to go compete. So I had decided to try it. And my first stage was not a competition; it was a showcase. But I built that choreography with my pole mom at the time, Kim, and went on stage and fell in love. And I've just I have so much that I want to say and express, and I find that you can express that in so many different ways. And pole has offered something to me that writing didn't, or singing didn't. I don't have to use my voice to express something. So over time, now that I'm actually in the competitive scene, um, I use my time on stage to either tell a story or to invite an audience into an experience. So in October of 2022, I went to PSO, Full Sport Organization in Toronto, and I competed in dramatic and in low flow. So kind of completely different. So dramatic, I did a routine about being a hospital patient experiencing psychosis, and came home with a bronze. And then for low flow, I did a tongue in cheek, um, old school Korean hip hop routine. And I ended up coming home with second place. So very much two different things. I don't think that if people had seen me the Saturday and Sunday would have been able to tell it was me unless they saw the yellow hair. So I really like to play with the whole scope of everything. And while I'm preparing for Fringe, I'm also preparing for my next competition in October. So it's a lot on my plate, and I just love putting routines and concepts together and expanding.
That's amazing. We definitely need to do a podcast together as well, because I have so many questions about the pole world, because I have no idea. I know nothing, so this is all so interesting. I could talk for the rest of this just about this world.
Pole world is an interesting one. It's an interesting one. There's a lot of layers, and I think there's a lot there that people don't expect either. Yeah.
It's how, just out of curiosity, what's the like side like it seems like such a niche kind of community, but where do you find this is kind of like most concentrated in, I guess, Ontario, and like how many people are in this world in general, like at competitions and things like that?
I think it's a lot bigger than people think, and I think it's a lot bigger than I could even understand. The main hubs for competitions have seemed to be like Toronto and Vancouver, but in 2023 that expanded to London and Montreal as well. And people will travel. So PSO 2022 was in Toronto, and now that I've been to so many shows, even ones where I didn't compete and I just kind of showcased or whatever, I would say I know about 70 to 80% of the performers that go. Awesome. But that's just because these are the same people that go. And yep. Then you have newer people, or either people that have been dancing for years and were not interested in touching a stage, finally coming on a stage, or baby polars, which, oh my goodness, just love them. They bring me the biggest joy. And they're so talented, but there's so many different people. And in terms of the world, because I can only kind of speak on the world that I'm a part of, I'm familiar with a lot of studios in Southern Ontario, and I know a lot of people from the different studios, and so it's pretty big down there. We actually have 2 pole studios here in town. That most time when I say that to people, they have no idea. Yeah. So we have Pole Girls Dance Fitness, and then we have Universal Pole Dance, but I dance through Pole Girls Dance Fitness with Paula Gibbs. So it's kind of it almost kind of like sneaks in the back and like slithers its way in. But unless you're looking, you're probably gonna miss it, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I would imagine it is similar to any sort of individual sport where you see start to build that community at all the competitions. Like I grew up a swimmer, and you'd see the same people every time, and it was just an expectation. And I used to love going to competitions for that reason, because you'd see these specific people only during the competitions, and then you get to spend a weekend with them, and then you see them at the next one, and it was a great time. So that's awesome that that community exists.
And all the different kinds of performances, they'll just they'll make you cackle. They'll make it, because you know you have the sexy fun stuff as well, and I love that. But I think it was this year, or like 2022, I was downstairs getting ready, and you could hear the Me Shop music, like do 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 do. So I missed that routine, but I wish I knew who was on stage and what they were doing, because I'm sure it was iconic.
Oh,
Yeah, so all kinds of people there.
that's so cool. I'm looking forward to talking more with you about this, because I have a lot of questions. It sounds really cool. I'm so out of like any of the dance world. I love watching figure skating, so I can like really appreciate that style of competition, but I'm so out of the loop in any type of dance. So I'm always so interested to chat about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be down. You hit me up, and I'm in.
Yes, please. Yeah, we'll have to do a podcast for sure. But anyway, I don't want to spend the rest of the time here talking about all this. So I see. I think Jess might be having some tech issues. I don't know if she's still with us. But
yeah, I'm still here.
okay, great. I just wanted to make sure. Do you want to chat a little bit about your journey coming into well, in poetry, but just as an artist in general?
Yeah, for sure. So I have been writing poetry since I was in grade 6. It started off as just a school assignment, and my teacher liked what I wrote, and he submitted it to a contest, and I won. You're gonna laugh. The Nature Poet won first place on the best poem on the theme of the environment. I didn't see it back then, but I see it now. So that was kind of like the kickoff for starting to write poetry and just kind of dabble in it. But I really fell in love with it because I got to say whatever I wanted without people knowing what I actually meant, which was kind of a cool thing. And it wasn't really about, it was a way for me to self-express, but when people read it, it wasn't really about me anymore. It was about what they felt and what they thought and how it resonated with them. And I thought it was such a cool way to connect with people. But poetry isn't my only only like artistic thing that I do. Like I'm into everything. Like I quilt, I sew, I paint, I do wood burning. Like if it's creative, I'm doing it. And that's kind of just always been a part of me. But back in 2018, things got kind of rough, and I turned to poetry as a way to cope with it. And my now fiance was like, you know, this is pretty good. And he's not a book person. He's not a poetry person. He's like, you should publish this. Like, this is really good. So I took a chance and I published my first book, and I published 2 more in the same year. And then last year I published my 4th book, and I'm working on a 5th, which is kind of a project that kind of culminates the whole journey for me. But yeah, art has been a part of my life since as long as I can remember. I can't imagine a world where I'm not using some medium as a form of like self-expression and sharing and connecting with people. It's kind of I feel like it's a big part of me, and there isn't just without art, despite
Yeah,
the fact that those letters don't really exist in my name. But yeah.
yeah. I was trying to find a letter that they're all different, unfortunately.
There's an A in Jessica, but
There
I
you
hear
go.
Jessica and I hear my mom's voice going Jessica, so I don't go by
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate. I mean, I said this at the beginning as well, but just the kind of contrast in between your story and Marie Jose's story of, but basically coming to the same point of self-expression, but one through words and one through a wordless medium. I think that's so cool. So
Yeah.
happy to have this group on. Um, Ash, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey?
Yeah. Um, so my mom will like to tell people now that I'm performing drag that I was always meant to perform drag. Um, my earliest memory on stage is in grade 6, and I played Jacob Marley in the Christmas Carol. And
Oh,
like my mom and me, we were so invested. Like we got the old suit, right? And we dug a hole in the backyard and we buried the suit so that it was all dirty and all of this, right? And anyway, she told me the other day she was going through boxes and she found this clipping from when I was in kindergarten, maybe, and we'd done a little play and I played salesman number one. So she's like, you've always played with gender on stage. But I didn't do that much theater. There was a couple there was a couple things, and they always seem to be drag apparently when we look back. But growing up, it was always writing. My mom still has books from like grade 3 and 4 that she likes to show my kids, and they love that are like little narrative stories that I wrote. And then as I hit middle school and high school, I started struggling with a lot of mental health issues. And I found that writing was just a way to get the bad feelings out. It was just a way to kind of be like, I can't keep eating this. It needs to come out of me. And I just like word vomit on pages. And it came out sounding half decent to my teenage self. Now it's a different story when I look back on it. But so it had started with that, and I wrote poetry right up until like my early 20s. And then I had my kids. I got married and I had my kids, and I stopped art like completely for quite a few years. Um, and then I started working with the Pride community locally and became really good friends with a drag queen that had just returned home here from Toronto and was wanting to get the drag scene up and running in the Sioux. And I was helping out behind the stage and we were organizing the shows, and I'm watching everybody on stage and I'm like, it's like there's this thing in me and it's just starting to kindle a little bit. And I'm like, and all the performers are nudging me and they're like, you're at all the shows, you're already doing the organizing, you're here anyways. Just try putting on a face. And I I'd never even thought of myself as like visually artistic. And then I started doing drag makeup and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a thing. Um, and then I hit the stage in 2018. In August of 2018 was my first time doing a performance number. And like that was it. I was done. And in listening to Marie talk about the different types of performances and the different things that she gets out of it. So like the either inviting people in and having them be there with you, or performing a narrative story concept, or all those different types of things that I found all of them. And I found ways to like explore myself through other people's art, which was really cool because I was able to like with drag, I'm able to like I hear a song and I'm like, okay, this triggers this feeling in me. Now how can I take this feeling and make it visual for others to see? Or it makes me think of this story. So how can I share this story? So it's almost like double edged that I'm like taking another person's art and then like transforming it and shifting it and putting my own spin on it, which is really a neat perspective. That is one of my favorite things about drag as an art form, is it kind of like you get to tell a couple stories and somebody can connect with the song how I perform it, but sometimes they don't, but the song itself connects with them, right? So it's kind of cool.
yeah, for sure. That's I another. I mean, we've had this conversation last year as well, but that's another the the drag world is another one that I'm so endlessly fascinated by because I'm so separate from it.
I feel like last year we promised we were going to get you in drag because we always wanted a bearded queen in the House of Horror, and we didn't manage to do that last year.
I have worn I did a I think it was for a university project. I did a drag outfit before, so I've done it. I haven't performed, but I've worn the outfit.
Is there pictures that you can share with us? Because I'd love to see this.
There are pictures. I don't think I can share it on the screen like this,
No.
but I will. Yes, for
Nice.
sure. Yes, yeah. So, and that was fun. So yeah, maybe we will see. Yeah, awesome. That's great. And I know we talked a little bit before we went live about. I mentioned the idea of the sort of time between projects and like how we finish a project and start a new one. And Ash, you sort of remarked that that's not really a thing in your world, and I agree. It's not a thing in my world either. I just kind of pile them all on top of each other, and every once in a while I'll get to kind of put one to the side, and that's how I work. But I'm curious with the three of you, how do you approach that? What is the sort of division between starting and stopping projects look like for you? Is it sort of just a constant blob of art, or is there more of a fine line?
So I'm gonna jump in. So for me, I have, like I said, I work across a ton of different mediums, and I feel like it would scare people to know how many things I have on the go, and just ideas that pop up for different books or different projects, whether it's you know, beading or sewing or cooking or gardening or like jewelry or whatever it happens to be. I've got like a running list of a couple hundred projects that I'd love to tackle, but I do have my favorites. And I feel like with me, I tend to get bored with something and then I'll jump to something else until it just inspires me again, and then I'll jump back into it and kind of give it my best rather than just plug away on something that my heart's not fully into.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I think especially my main medium is writing as well. So it sort of works that way for me. It depends how I'm feeling in the moment. If I want to work on something more comedic, or if I have something, darker and I'm in a sour mood, then I'll write the dark thing. Um, and that's sort of how I stay in it as a writer. Like I think if I didn't have that option between things, I wouldn't finish anything.
Yeah. And then I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I feel like I'm constantly finding new things that I want to try out. So I've been into photography for years, but I just got my hands on an old 1960s camera and have kind of been reteaching myself how to take like manual photos with this old camera. And there's always something new that I'm finding and trying to dabble in. And I feel like there's just too much. I would gladly quit everything and just do art.
Yeah. Yeah, do you two feel that way as well?
For me, definitely some stuff there's a start and end. Only because part of my art does include the show organizing, right? So like
Yeah.
when the show is over, the show is over, but we're often working on like multiple shows. Whether it be shows that I'm organizing, shows that I've asked to be part of. So I've kind of always got several of those. Like with drag, I've got like every time I hear a song and it clicks, every time I hear that song, then I'm like, I could do this in the performance. I could do this costume. So it's a constant thinking of possibilities when I hear songs. And then when it comes to like specific performance and really like defining down the performance, it's very much like when we do shows, I average 2 to 5 songs a show. So like that means that I'm working on 2 to 5 songs at a time for concept. I don't do a lot of practicing per se. It's just a lot of thinking, right? And when we're in busy seasons where we've got multiple shows happening, like a couple a month or even like every couple months, I'm thinking a few shows ahead, right? So there's at any given time, there's like probably 20 songs that are on the like background brain brewing, that pot that's just kind of simmering. And there's probably anywhere from 2 to 10 that are on the actively making sure I know all of the lyrics and polishing and getting it ready to actually be a showcase. Um, costuming, I'm not as big on taking on big costuming projects. My wife, who is also a performer, is really more of like they do like drawing and visual art, and they also are more apt to like pick up the needle and thread. So a lot of times I get these wonderful concepts and ideas and I'm like, here, make me an outfit. But when I have time, there's a few outfits that I do take on with like the sewing and the modifying on my own. Those tend to be further in between. I'm very much a concept person, so there's always a million concepts, but that like drilling down and polishing the thing only happens when there's a deadline. So that's kind of lots of things going on. And then because I manage the house, I'm also thinking of like promo art and making posters and all of that is kind of, but again, those are things that it's like, okay, we've got a deadline, we've got a show coming, we need to advertise. Let's get some really basic visual arts happening so we can get some advertising out. So yeah, there's always kind of a constant large number of things kind of just like simmering and then a few things being polished up at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Um, as a quick side note, my fiance is also a visual artist and costume designer, so that's got that in common.
Yes.
It's great. It's great. If I need stuff for what I'm working on, then I'm inept at that. So
I think it's great and you think it's great. Our spouses may not think it's quite as great at times.
yeah.
You want me to make what now? Yes. Yes, I want to do that. I'd like to scalp somebody on stage. Please tell me how we can make this happen.
That's amazing. Um, I was no, I've lost my train of thought. Oh no, I remember. I got it back. Um, if I'm just curious about the sort of, I guess, composition or curating within a drag show. Do you have, just because of the way it's structured, that there are several pieces within a show? What is the sort of overlap between shows? Is it like, do you have a piece that you'll use for multiple shows if it fits in, or is it like one and done? And
No, I don't want to speak for the whole drag community, but at least for those that I know, they'd be lying if they told you it's one and done. Sometimes it is one and done, right? You perform it and it hit everything you wanted it to hit. And you're like, you know what? I can't fathom doing it again. That rarely happens. Usually, if it hits everything and it's really good, we'll pull it out again because it's easy, right?
yeah.
So, myself and a lot of the other performers that I know, there's always like a few numbers in our back pocket. We have times, last summer was a prime example. We did a show as part of a festival, and I think it was like the Bawading Pride that had happened at the Bondar, and Science North had a booth at that event, and they were working on their traveling roadshow, and their traveling roadshow was here 1 or 2 weeks later. And they literally like reached out to us after that and they're like, we've got a show happening next week, can you come and like throw something together? So as if you want to make the money and you want to take the paid gigs, you always need a few things in your back pocket so you can take them when they come. So there's always a few those, I'm going to be honest, those for me tend to be the pieces that are more of a those inviting people in with me pieces. So they're going to, for me, they're either like a really emotional song, but it's really just about performing the emotion, or they're really upbeat, dancey, like my favorite part of my drag persona. While I do lots of different types of feeling in my songs, I do also really like to at shows at least once every show have just really like a fun upbeat, I'm dancing, we're having fun, I'm your buddy at the bar, let's have a good time. So those ones I tend to recycle a lot just because they're really easy. The ones that I put in a lot of the emotional work for, um I do recycle them on occasion, but I tend to put them further apart just because they're a little more draining to do, or they might have like we do like I talked about scalping somebody on stage. That was a Halloween contest we did. I didn't really scalp them on stage. It was a bit. But when we start pulling out like a lot of those like heavy like effects and tricks, those tend to be safe for the special occasions, just because there's a lot more that goes into them. And if it's like a surprise twist at the end, which in this case it was, I'd like lured somebody in and romanced her. I'd done Harry Styles' Girl Crush. So the idea was like I lured her in and I romanced her, but it was a horror number. So the idea was that I want your long blonde hair, and I like took the wig off her and put it on myself and took her outfit off and all of that. So once that's been seen, that twist is done, right? So you don't get, so that's one I would love to do again, but it's probably going to be several years before I'd even consider bringing that back to a stage, because you've lost the wow factor unless you have a whole new audience. And let's be honest, we're in the Sioux. We tend to recycle our audiences sometimes too. So that's another consideration that goes into recycling numbers, right? So some stuff I did at the Fringe Festival last year, which was kind of a newer audience, I've since done at like a college show, and then I've done at one of our traditional House of Gore shows, because all three of them had different audience for the most part.
That makes sense. Very cool. Interesting. I guess well, same question for you, Marie Jose, about starting projects and kind of that overlap. But I'm also curious to hear you talk a bit about that, because I would imagine it's similar for like pieces that you might use multiple times. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about that too, and see the similarities or differences there.
Well, I do just want to say, like, Ash, there's a couple of things there that I definitely relate to, but I also, like, I wrote it down, that I really liked that concept of having something in your back pocket, and I think I need to learn that off of you. And Garrett, in terms of the question, it is a little bit challenging to answer in a broader spectrum, just because this will technically be my first non-whole world stage. So I've only ever performed for the whole world, and I did a freestyle chair routine at college, and I did a floor work routine at college, but again, it was very like low key, and it was very, I think it was just an environment that I didn't know yet, right? So, and I would still have considered myself a baby polar, and it may shock people, but I'm a lot more shy than I come off. I appear very extroverted, but I'm actually quite shy. So that includes stage shyness. But in terms of my artistic process, in terms of like finishing or not finishing, or how I get onto a new project, I started painting recently, and that one I feel like I pick up and drop, right? Pole has a different aspect in terms of, because I'm in the competition scene, I call it comp season. So right now I'm entering comp season because I have a competition in October. So doing a lot of training, trying to specify certain points of flexibility, certain points of strength, certain body parts that I need more strength or grip or whatever in, and then test running it on different poles and different costumes, because they're, this is a component that we could definitely talk about on a podcast, but different poles have different finishes and sizes, and your body chemistry actually interacts differently with them. So testing on different poles, different heights, all that stuff is very important. Not to mention points of disqualification if something slips out. So you have to test run a lot of stuff. So entering comp season, what ends up happening is I'm big into music and I listen to a lot of stuff, but I'm mainly known for listening to a lot of Korean rap. But I will kind of sit through and either shuffle my playlists or look for more music and kind of sit. And if it speaks to me in a way that is relating to something I have to say, then I start thinking about a concept with a deep structure. So, for example, last year's routine in terms of psychosis. And then another thing. Sorry, what was that?
My Siri came on. I apologize.
Sorry,
my Siri was very engaged. I don't know. Sorry.
That scared me.
I know.
So and another thing that I really like to do is I'm really big into. I look up to a lot of artists. So actually, like this is kind of my whole background on Instagram, and like you've got Justin Bieber, Adam Sandler's wife. Uh, this is a Thai artist in the K-pop world named Ten, and then you have one of my sweet Chinese boys named Xiaojun. So like I kind of surround myself with these people that I look up to, but I also turn to what they have to say. And I think that in almost the way that Jess talks about poetry, speaking terms that maybe a person that's reading may not comprehend in the way that Jess intended. I think by listening to other people, you learn stuff about yourself and you can pick stuff up from their experience and their life. And I like to do that as well. And I often use a lot of the artists that I look up to, who are often, as you can probably tell by some K-pop, China, Thai influences behind me that are not always North American. And I think that there's a different experience there that we can pull from and we can learn from. And I think that music world specifically that's outside of North America has a lot to offer us. There's a little bit of a ramble, but I'm not sure if it fully answers the question, but it's very much, my process is almost poetic in its own way. It's very much, I'm constantly researching without people knowing.
Yeah.
So I'm observing, I'm listening, I'm participating, and I do a lot of self-reflection. So even for the routine that I will not spoil for my own sake, coming up for competition, that is inspired by a direct experience that I've had, but worded by someone else, if you will, through music.
Hmm. Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. That's fantastic. I'm well. I want to first of all, I need to get some music recommendations from you because this is another whole new world for me. I have not. I don't know if I've heard any Korean rap, so
It's some good stuff. I'll tell you that. I know people often they will look side eye at me, but I've been a K-pop fan for 11 years now. So I know like the old school stuff, like the before they had English writers stuff. So
Right.
trying to appeal to a North American audience, but not having any English, and it's not creating any humor against different cultures. It was honestly just so interesting to see the development from not being North American or gearing towards North Americans to all of a sudden, like, you have BTS and Blackpink at event shows. So anyways, I totally cut you off. My apologies. Continue.
No, that's great. That's very interesting. Do you find when you're pulling from that style of music that's not necessarily geared towards a North American audience, how do you find yourself sort of like injecting a North American experience, kind of creating like a blend of things, or are you like how do you kind of approach that?
That is a very interesting question, and I very much enjoyed that question. That's a good one. I think probably like, so two of the Korean songs or Korean artists, actually, yeah, two of them were Korean artists, and then one of them that I did was the Chinese artist Xiaojun. They were, all three of them were English songs,
Okay.
but and I kind of do that, especially if I'm going to competition, is very much you do have to make sure that your concept is clear, because a scorecard will break down if they can understand your concept.
Right.
So you need to make sure that it's clear. So if I were to find a song that was not English, that I was performing at an English event, if it was clear and distinct enough, then you can kind of, depending on how your concept goes, you can kind of get away with that. Otherwise, so the routine that I did, I really love this one, was the Low Flow 2022, which was like that old school Korean rap. It was interesting because I didn't know this was a popular song. Oops. The song How G, like with the horns and stuff that kind of popped off on TikTok. I don't know it, but the Korean group had covered it in 2006 and used like we're talking like cringy rap sayings from like the 90s
Right.
that like North American rappers used. So I used that as like a tongue-in-cheek fun way. So like we have a line that's like, I wear my sunglasses at night, still 2020. Like it's very like tongue-in-cheek and almost kind of like, ooh, is that actually,
Yeah.
you're kind of like, yeah, but it's so it gets an audience going because it doesn't take itself seriously.
Right.
But I did do a serious routine. For example, it was this was at a it was a competition event, but I wasn't competing, so still a baby polar. And I did this song called "Here Come the Regrets," which was by a Korean rap group. We're pictured above here, but they're not in frame, but they're pictured. But that one, I did a routine about although gay woman, I did a routine about kind of like having a one night stand with a man, which you may not associate the two together, but it really created kind of a nice blend, and probably one of the biggest compliments I ever got, which that my style was, and I understand this term is considered offensive outside of the pole world, so I do want to apologize and preface because this is the term that they use at events, so it's kind of we're in that world where we're transitioning, and hopefully there may be another term in the future, but I was described as like old school or raw exotic.
Okay.
Which was a large compliment because that was kind of someone telling me that I was inspired, or that my style was very reminiscent of old school strippers. So that was a big compliment for me personally. So total ramble, but yeah, using you can kind of use music from anywhere. And if you listen carefully enough, you can pull something out of anything, and you can make anything into a routine.
Very interesting. Yeah, and also definitely not a ramble. I'm very interested to hear all of this.
Yeah.
I'm sure others are as well. Very cool. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
I was just I'm like I've been listening with like rapt attention and like mentally cataloging, because I don't have pen and paper because I'm not that organized like you are, but I'm like mentally cataloging like the differences and similarities between, right, because it's both like other people's music and it's both performance art. um and I'm like just yeah, I'm just doing like the mental like yep. Oh, oh, she's like organized and like does full on like routines and practices versus like 50 run throughs of winging it and then a winging it on stage.
Here's the thing, I totally do that too. Like I understand, right? There's different approaches.
But it's just interesting, like the very different art forms, but like that basis of like pulling in from others people's music, bringing like the similarities. I'm very excited for like you and I to just connect and like chat about art. Well, it's great to do it on podcast and have everybody catch it. We don't have enough time, and we have Jess here, and I want to hear more about Jess's poetry and stuff. So like, but like we need to like have some time to really chat about the similarities and differences in our art, because I think we can learn a lot from each other. I really do.
Definitely hit me up.
Amazing. I love that we've made this. You two have not met before this either. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad we can help facilitate this connection. Um, I want to keep talking. I'm noticing the time. I can't. We've already been talking for like 50 minutes, which is crazy. This is such an interesting conversation. We'll have to have all of you back on again, and we'll be doing podcasts and things like that. But I wanted to end with bit of a conversation, maybe looking into the future. Staying in the same realm of things, though, on the idea of starting projects. What is a project that you're looking to get started, either like soon or way into the future, that is like a really exciting kind of dream project for you? And where are you at in that journey as you're kind of approaching this?
I'll start because mine, I feel like mine is pretty short. I would like, going forward, I want to go and get licensed and or insured, so that I can teach. And I've actually been blessed with the opportunity of someone asking me for a second time to choreograph their competition routine. So in I want to keep growing in that way. I'm working with another dancer from London named Susie G. She is the best. And she's teaching me stuff that I have been missing because my studio in Barrie closed down, moving here, the transition, all of that stuff. But learning from others, but also I want to start teaching. And even if it's not trick based, teaching like structure in terms of how to structure a routine, the points that you need to hit, and learning from my own mistakes as well, right? I think that that's always important as a teacher, is to continue being humble with yourself and admit, yeah, that wasn't really good, and trying to find a way to do it differently, and offering that growth to someone else so then they can transform that even further. Because I found that I learned from my teacher, Kim, who was experimenting a lot when I first met her. So very experimental choreography, and it formed me into who I am. And I want to be able to teach and pass on the art and the sport and the dance. And for those that also want to strip, the stripping of it, offering that to more people. So yeah, let's fingers crossed. But yeah, that's hopefully in the cards for my future.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. And in the realm of teaching, I'll pass it back to Jess, because last year at Fringe North, Jess ran a fantastic workshop that I got to be a part of, teaching some poetry skills, which is fantastic for me because that's another thing that I had not experienced before, really, as an artist. Um, so yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Jess. What is sort of a dream project, aside from the one that you've already mentioned you're going to be doing for Fringe North this season, which sounds like a dream project? But what's something you're kind of looking ahead at?
I actually, much like my work in progress list, I have a million dream projects, and I really want to branch away from poetry and get into more fiction. But my big dream is to start my own company, teaching like arts-based mindfulness skills. So I've heard a lot of people, both like in my personal life, professional life, and Marie Jose and Ashley talking about how like there's like constant reflection. And I just feel, because my background is in mental health, and specifically children's mental health, and I just feel like that's a skill that people really lack, is the ability to sit back. And then this is just a generalization, but I feel like we're so busy with our lives that a lot of us struggle to sit back and really reflect and just mull over things and kind of piece it all together and make sense of it. And I know for me growing up, that was a skill that I didn't have. When I was little, my dad got sick with a kidney disease, and my mom was an immigrant, and it's a whole big crazy story where she donated her kidney to him. And so basically the focus of like the bulk of my childhood was on other people's problems, and I never really got to learn a lot of the skills that I needed. So I kind of want to take what I did when I was working in schools with children's mental health and doing group programming and turn that into a business where it's not so stuffy, not so restricted by like government mandates and stuff like that, and really teach mindfulness and connecting with yourself and self-expression and a reflection and all those awesome skills, but through art. And in a really approachable way. Like if anyone's ever sat through, and Garrett, you probably heard me say this last year, but one of the things I say in every workshop, every presentation, everything I've ever done is that art is for everyone. And we get so hung up on this idea that you have to be a professional, you have to be good, you have to have, you know, a million fans on TikTok to be doing art and be considered legit. You don't. You just have to pick up a pencil or sing into your hairbrush or grab a paintbrush or whatever your medium is, and just do it and just play with it and see where it takes you and really just pour your heart into it. And the skills will come. They will come. but the real thing is to just open up to the possibility of art and everything that it can do for you.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited about hopefully putting something like that together in the future, where it's like an arts-based kids mindfulness mental health kind of programming outside of schools, or maybe even for schools. I'm not sure yet. It's been something that's kind of been redesigned about 18 times in the last 3 years, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I can speak to the work that you do in terms of really hammering down that idea that art is for everyone. Like I totally left your workshop feeling that and feeling energized to go create and make, even though I'm maybe not I don't have the background in poetry or anything like that. It definitely left me feeling like I could sit down and write some poetry, which I did not feel beforehand. So I'm so excited to see that with youth as well, because I think that's so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing.
Thanks.
And Ash.
First of all, I just want to say to Jess that as a parent of a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, 100% what you were talking about is needed for these youth. And also, like, the idea of the art is for everyone. I've been working on a workshop that I'm going to be presenting myself, and I was actually doing it right before this, and I was down this path of not only is art for everyone, but like, I swear, I'm positive that anybody can look. If they look hard enough in their life, they're going to find art in something they do, right? Art is for everyone, but it also is in everything. But onto your question, Garrett. Right now I just graduated the SSW program at Sioux College, and I'm on my way over to Algoma U to get my bachelor's. My end goal is my master's. So my end goal is way down. This doesn't sound like drag, but it all ties in. I would love to um be doing some private practice and making enough funds that I would have enough time to commit to volunteering with drag and with other aspects of the 2S LGBTQ community locally. So different, being able to commit space to be doing workshops, ally building, parenting caregiver workshops, drag performances, hangouts, and it's not as based in the art, but like the art for me is what kind of led me to that. As far as the actual logistics of the art and the drag, I just really want a space where we lost our home bar during COVID. We performed regularly in Sioux, Michigan, and unfortunately it didn't reopen after COVID, and one of the owners passed away. So we lost that person, first of all, but we also lost that space that was like our home. So the real dream would be able to have a home again versus like renting venues and talking to every bartender and, hey, can we have a space? Hey, can we have a space for a night? So just a place where we can just go and do the art of drag when it strikes us, and having regular consistent shows would be kind of the dream. But as far as like my like projects with the actual art itself, I just kind of, the same as my numbers, it's a lot of winging it, right? It's like whatever life kind of throws at me, I just say yes and I do it. I've been really focusing on more of those like structural and community based goals. So the actual art goals aren't quite as strong in the mind right now. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. You all are doing such important work. That's so great. Like I, I'm very moved and so happy to have the three of you involved in the festival. To see what you want to bring to the community, it's so inspiring. So, thank you so much again, all of you for coming on for our first roundtable. I'm so happy to be starting these again. I hope to have you all out again a few times, hopefully. We're definitely going to have to do some podcasts. So it's going to be very fun. I'm so looking forward to seeing all your incredible work at the festival. And thank you to the folks at home watching. Thanks for joining us tonight. Merci, miigwech, gracias. And just a reminder that Fringe North 2023 will be from August 16th to the 20th this year. You can check out our website that and all our social media channels in the description below for more information about the festival. We actually released the list of artists today, I believe, so go check that out on the site. And if you want to support all the work that the team is doing here, please consider tipping the Fringe. And you can find the link for that below, as well as on our website. We will be back for another live stream next Thursday evening. We can't wait to see you all there. Before we sign off, would the three of you like to share any social media or anything that people can find you at?
Yeah, for sure. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
I am on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm on Twitter too, but I don't use it a whole lot. You can find me on all four of those platforms as JL Fazell.
Great.
The one that I am most active on is Instagram, and it is Marie Jose at MareeJozayy. Yeah, I'd love to see you there. It'd be awesome to connect.
I Insta and Facebook, both for my personal drag pages, those are under Luke McAnally Gore Shadow. Very long, hard to remember, but if you look up House of Gore, HAUSOFGORE on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is The House of Gore. Facebook is House of Gore. You'll find links to myself and all of the other local drag performers on those social medias.
Fantastic. Thank you all once again, and we will see you next Thursday right here. Bye, everyone.